thank my listeners for joining me on my latest podcast. I have a special guest today, Andre Jonovic, is the CEO of XBP Europe, and he's going to look at some of the more visible and less visible impacts on our organizations when bills and payments processes are not optimized. A big issue for many companies, also many companies I know. And we will find out that this is actually a much bigger issue than you might think. And he will have some surprising insights on things like the true costs of late payments and, of course, the concerns around liquidity and security. Before we elaborate, we will hear some sound bites from Andre.
Thank you, Spiros. I'm delighted to shed a little more light on what's happening in this space. At XBP Europe, we've worked in this field of bills and payments for a long time, for decades. And in that time frame, we've seen a lot, including the opportunity costs and risks at play if organizations don't get this piece of the business right. The numbers can be quite staggering. For example, the average cost to manually process one invoice can run over 10 euros or 11 US dollars. Now, picture the scale of that, even for the average enterprise, and the lost opportunity for their cash flow. Add to this the rapid rise of phishing scams around invoices, and they really start to complicate things and are adding more friction along the entire chain. It's all quite suboptimal, especially in the digital age where we can automate pretty much anything, or at least we believe we should be able to. But that's the status quo for many companies, and they really need support to improve upon it. There are systems available to mitigate these issues. Many business owners are vaguely aware of what's out there, and they're not clear on just how powerful these tools can be and the benefits that come from working with the right technology or services partner.
I mean, it sounds very promising. Okay, let's dive deeper into this topic and let's explore more about what XBP Europe is about and how it can help customers to solve those issues addressed before. I've read some, I made some points here for myself, I wanted to ask you, and also from literature you gave us, is, I didn't know that to chase late payments costs Europe about 175 billion a year, and it takes an average of 74 days to resolve. I mean, is it something that your firm helps those companies to reduce this days and, of course, those costs?
Yes. So Spiros, this is kind of this is an endemic problem, right? This is a problem that exists everywhere. It's a problem that doesn't discriminate, and it applies across industries and across countries. And it's about the liquidity in the system and whether that liquidity is used effectively. And the truth is, when we are all trying to manage our liquidity better, somehow we all end up being a little bit worse off. Most of us, or most companies, are. And the reasons for that are multifold, but I'll try and summarize them into a few categories. One is companies, many of them have broken internal processes, right? They have a multitude of channels in which they receive invoices. They have different systems on which they track their enterprise or their ERPs if they're larger. They have different terms. They have different payment channels. They have many different things converging and creating friction with how a company operates and how it manages liquidity. Then you've got the macroeconomic pressures. You've got the sort of the reality of the fact that the bigger players have more leverage, and they manage their liquidity in a way that puts pressure on the smaller players, right? So they'll try and improve, they'll try and improve both the DPOs and the DSOs, and the bigger guy wins, right? If you're a big enterprise, you can tell the small vendors, listen, I'm going to pay you in 90 days, and the small vendor has no choice but to accept that, right?
Correct.
And then you've got also on top of that, you've got regulation, Regulation is actually in Europe trying very hard to get Europe as a whole. And I know that there's now there's the UK in Europe, there's Switzerland, there's the EU, there's different things, but they're all moving, I would say, in a similar direction at a similar pace. And the regulators are trying to find a way to free up more liquidity in the system. They're insisting on payments being more instantaneous, right?
Mhm.
They're allowing for more players to enter the system through open banking. They're doing all these things to essentially help everyone who participates in the system and help them with their liquidity. But the regulators haven't yet gotten to a point where the system as a whole and the participants in that system are party to a wholesome set of regulations that regulate everyone the same way. So, for example, you've got in many countries, they're mandating, they're requiring e-invoices if you're interacting with the public sector, or now it's spreading. But the cost of e-invoices is not something that people talk about. And for companies to move from the way they process invoices to e-invoicing platforms is not a nominal amount. And so it takes time and it takes money. And the smaller players, it's not going to be easy for them. It's not easy for them to do so. So the regulations, while they have good intentions, haven't yet resulted in the improvement that they're seeking to achieve. So when you take these three, broadly speaking, factors and you look at statistics, the one thing you pointed out is, how much money is stuck in the system. And it is true that for many European companies, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars every year, or euros, or Swiss francs.
One number that stuck out, how much it costs on average to process a single bill. I mean, it's $8 to $12. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I mean, for smaller bills, I mean, that's a huge portion. I mean, if it's $100 bill, we're talking about 8 to 12%.
Right. And look, it's hard to be very precise about this.
Mm-hmm.
But what is true is that the delays in getting invoices paid, the delays that they cause in processing them, in getting counterparties essentially paid off, adds a whole lot of cost that we shouldn't have. If the system wasn't as broken as it is, and if the internal processes among the different participants weren't as broken, there would be far more liquidity in the system. Well, far more may be a strong word, but there would be more liquidity in the system. It would be used more effectively. And you're referencing a statistic that depending on the country, depending on the industry,
Yes,
may
obviously.
vary. Yeah, but it's true. The moment you don't get paid on time as a company, you're gonna start making the phone calls. Your treasury team or your AR team is gonna make the phone calls. They're gonna follow up. Then it turns out that there's some error with the invoice. Then it turns out that the right people aren't there. Then it turns out that it hasn't received the requisite approvals, and it adds to that timeline that that is already protracted for some of the players, right? And so it adds up being a system where it's harder for the small and medium businesses to participate, and they themselves actually constitute the majority of these economies. Right? If you think about it, millions and millions of SMBs are what make up these various European economies.
I mean, in Germany, it's a huge portion, and that's why it's such an attractive portion of the economy that drives the economy, the small companies. I think people got what pain points you're addressing. Question is, how do you do it? I mean, if a customer comes to you, is it something difficult for them to deploy? I mean, if they call you salespeople and say, "Hey, I've heard this podcast," for instance, I mean, what kind of a hurdle is it for them, to start working with you? Is it a long process? Is it technical difficult to take advantage of what you have to offer?
No, it is not. Is a simple answer. And the reason it isn't is because our company does not offer one platform or try and solve one particular aspect of this problem. It's trying to approach the problem in a holistic fashion. And it acknowledges that the different companies, depending on size and depending on industry, have different needs and different gaps. So everything that revolves around the XBP platform, the exchange for bills and payments, and it can serve as both a sort of a modular piece for a gap that exists, or it can serve as the overarching system of record, if you will, for both AP and AR processing and all the related other processes. And because of the way we've constructed it, right, we've made sure that the amount of time and the amount of resources or money needed is minimal. It doesn't require capital investments, right? And the nature of that platform is created, right, with that in mind. We can help you with a small gap, a module, or we can help you as an overarching system of record for your management of bills and payments.
And is it difficult for the companies to deploy it? Like, I mean, it seems like obviously it varies on size of the company, how many employees it has, and customers. But is it something you believe relatively easy to deploy? I mean, I see the benefit.
Yes.
I see the huge benefit.
Yes. I mean, look, I think so. We operate in 15 European countries, right? Our biggest markets are France, UK, Germany, and then Sweden. The nature of those economies vary a bit, but we see adoption rate across all those, and so we think that there are some common denominators, and we think that given the fact that we're able to address problems in each of those markets, the adoption rate itself tells us that it's a relatively practical platform and solution to use.
Do you tell your customers the before and after? It's like those apartments before and after. It's like they use your system and say, hey, look, that's what happened before, and now after 1 year, after 2 years, you see those benefits. Do you have those kind of statistics, or I mean, at hand?
I don't have them at hand. Well, we have case studies, and we use case studies when we speak with our clients, we speak with our prospects, and we use them to say, okay, this is how long it took you in the past to get your invoices paid, and it's gone from this many days down to this many days, right? This is how many resources it took you to get certain invoices out in the past, and we've gotten that down to this, right? We have that, and the thing is, it's a little difficult to generalize, but it's that kind of benchmarking, I think, that is really our strength, because we're able to show you how you can be better off by using what we offer as opposed to not using us.
And where do you see, I mean, is there something you can talk about where the company is heading, not only in terms of markets, but do you see exciting things that will be offered to your clients in the future, in addition to what you do already?
I'll try and stick to things that are ancillary or part of this. So a few years ago, 5 years ago to be exact, we teamed up with Vocalink, which is now part of MasterCard, and we built something called RTP, which is request to pay. Request to pay is actually ultimately it's a solution and a product, but it addresses this problem in a nutshell, and it addresses it in a way that we think is the way forward. And the way forward is, if you put together all the problems that exist and all the threats that exist today for invoices and payments.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing we haven't covered, Spiros, is the fact that the likelihood of fraud, right, and invoices being fraudulent has skyrocketed, right? I'm a CEO, and I have in the past month or so received emails from my CFO, okay, and he's received emails from me instructing one or the other to go ahead and make a payment or to go ahead and provide certain information. And these were phishing scams, and they become so sophisticated and they become so surgical that the risk of fraud in this particular process should not be underestimated. And RTP is one of those tools that prevents that, because RTP is a secure, ultimately a secure messaging platform that is limited to messages about bills and payments. So I'll try and be very succinct, but what it does is, if you're a consumer or you're a business, either way you're a buyer, right? You're going to be one side of the equation, one side of the transaction. On the other side, you have the biller, right, or the provider of services, right? And the provider of services is going to want to issue invoices to you, bills to you. You will receive those bills in a secure fashion. And so a biller has a biller portal in RTP, loads those bills, and they go to those buyers or those consumers, the payers. The payer, if I'm a consumer today and I get a utility bill, I will be able to see that it came from so-and-so, that it's for this period in this amount. And it's going to start a dialogue with you. It's going to start a process that we're not used to, which is, if I get an invoice from a bill from a utility provider today and it gets in the mail, I usually put in the tail end of my pile of priorities, because I know that either it's direct debited or I will want to deal with it later, and procrastination then leads to other problems. And so that problem exists both among consumers, it exists among companies too. But what this does is it accelerates the interaction. It stimulates the dialogue, because it's asking me, what do I want to do? What's my next action? And the actions that in the UK have been sort of agreed upon boil down to a few simple ones. They are pay now, pay in part, request payment plan, or decline. And the logic around this is, it will immediately enable the two counterparties to interact and to come up with a plan for how to solve this invoice, how to solve this bill. And in many cases, it's more likely that if you pay now, you may get incentives such as early payment discounts, right? Which is great for liquidity management. So if you're an enterprise and you're dealing with hundreds or thousands of these, and you have a channel through which it's secure, it's coming to you, and you can manage your liquidity by virtue of choosing to pay certain things early and get a discount, or agree to a payment plan and manage your liquidity better, then I think we're really making progress in getting to a solution that addresses a vast majority of the tension in the system, and does so in a secure fashion. And I can't underscore the frequency and the risk of fraudulent transactions in today's world. They are just everywhere, and we see them left and right.
It's scary. I mean, we see the deep fakes and the CFOs that got tricked, and hearing the voices of the CEO or whatever. I think what you address here with your solution will make a lot of companies more comfortable, because they know there's certain processes before money gets wired,
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
I think that gives a lot of comfort. It will give me a lot of comfort.
And this RTP actually it's not just a UK based initiative. It's also Europe wide. Slightly different sponsor for it, but the logic is the same. And so we have that readily available. We can offer that to any of our clients. And I think if you're asking me, what's exciting, what what in particular I would highlight. I would highlight RTP. I think this is the way forward, and I think the awareness around it is growing, but adoption hasn't yet quite kicked in at the level that you'd expect. But I do feel it's the way forward.
I think podcasts such as this and awareness, I think that generate interest and people will look at it. I think, if you're a CFO or a CEO of another company, you probably will take a look 5-10 minutes to see if that's useful, and probably likely they will see it's very useful. I mean, we're not selling here something. It's a pain point. It's very scary out there, and I think the awareness is good, and people get they might get interested to explore more. Who are the decision makers who love what you guys do? Is it CFO or CEOs of those companies? I mean, you know,
It very much depends on both the jurisdiction, and it depends on the industry as well. Because we're both a technology provider and a services provider, that's why it will vary quite a bit, right? So if you think about it, as a company, we can sell you a software license and let you sort of utilize it as best you can and with the people that you have. But we can also take over an entire system or a process of yours and do a better job with it. So I think it very much depends on what is the problem we're trying to solve. The truth is we have a reasonably large footprint. We have 1,500 people across Europe, and so we have both the footprint and the physical presence to be able to act as a services provider and outsource entire processes from some of these clients who need that type of help.
Andre, something that's out there and everyone talks about it, AI. And I haven't asked you a question about it today, but tell me a little bit. We don't have much time left. We have about another 10 minutes, the most. Does AI play a role in your business?
Of course it does, Spiros. We use essentially intelligent machine learning already in our bills and payments processes. We have RPA tools that ultimately are meant to take away from humans the mundane, the repetitive tasks, and do it through bots, right? So that's already being done in what we do in bills and payments, and that's part of the reason why our proposition is, I think, a very valuable one. But outside of that, we actually have we've in listening to the needs of our clients, we have realized that while bills and payments is our bread and butter, our clients are dealing with a new challenge, and that new challenge is cybersecurity risks and the need to become cloud enabled. Because we are cloud enabled, because we see the benefits of being on the cloud and everything that you can do to optimize, including your liquidity, if you're truly cloud enabled. We've decided to launch a new business unit. We call it Reactor.ai. We launched it shortly after we became public in January of this year. And the purpose of Reactor is to help clients address their cybersecurity needs and to help them pursue cloud migrations and cloud management. And these two buckets of solutions are both AI enabled, right? So you can become a participant or a client, subscriber, if you will, and it's meant to help you track the threats that exist. And then we talked about the threats of fraudulent, invoices. And then we're talking about threats that exist constantly, which is that enterprises are getting attacked left and right. It's also becoming endemic, and we use AI to help, further boost the strength of our platforms that are supporting the Reactor cybersecurity platform.
Thank you. Is there something last I missed to ask? I mean, of course, we had such a short time. There's limits of how much we can talk about, but is there something close to your heart you would like to tell the audience, about your services, or maybe something I forgot to address?
No, you did not. I think the way we've had this discussion is very natural. So I think we've hit the points we can hit in a short period of time. I do think that what I would like to highlight towards the end is that there are a lot of companies out there that offer a specific solution or a specific platform, and you have to sign up to that or nothing. And we are meant to be far more agnostic and flexible for our clients' needs. And so when we talk about bills and payments, which was the topic for today, we're really that solution provider, both in terms of technology and services, that listens to what is the problem, diagnoses it, and then provides you with the solution. So I think I would just encourage whoever thinks that they have a practical problem of that kind, and many do, to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to listen and try and help any of those small companies or enterprises.
Thank you, Andre, for your time and for telling us a little bit about your industry and the problems you're solving for lots of companies and with your team. We will provide links at the end of the podcast on the platforms to your website, and obviously also contact information so they can contact you. And I learned a lot today, and you're an amazing guest. You're really, really good. I mean, I really
You're an even better host. Well, thank you for having me.
I love to listen. I love to listen to you, and this is, people know me. It's not my main business. My main business is investing, but this was a good podcast. Thanks a lot, and it's a privilege. It was a privilege to listen to you and to hear more about your company, and hopefully we do more of this in the future. And thanks again.
Thank you, Spiros. Thank you for your time.